Welcome to the Journey Through the Eyes podcast, the podcast where we talk about all things EMDR. I am your host, Kathy Couch, and we are here today speaking with Jennifer Herman. And we have a lovely guest today. We are planning to talk to her about her practice and her journey and what led her to be a functional medical practitioner. And then we are also going to talk about her presentation in our summit. So happy to have you here. Jennifer, can you share a bit about your journey and kind of maybe your background to start with?
Yeah, of course. So first, I want to say thank you so much, Kathy, for having me here. I'm so excited to be able to spend this time with you today and connect on stuff that we're both very excited and passionate about. So I love that.
Yes.
And to be able to share that with others, like that's like such a huge part of, this work that we do is being able to share and support others. So I'm super grateful, to be here. But a little bit about myself and my practice. Well, I'm located in the Pocono Mountains in northeastern Pennsylvania. Um, I started out, in this field like many others, right? Like with my own health struggles, and I had my own goals and sort of curiosities on how to heal, naturally. And so I started out in training as a functional nutritional therapist. And so that
Okay.
has this like whole body, food as medicine approach, and it was awesome. It is awesome. It's totally fantastic, right? But what I was finding is that, we didn't have that like brain or like mental health piece like in my training there. And what I was finding is that there was something missing from my work with my clients. And a lot of my clients were like doing the things, they're like following the protocols and they were seeing, some like results, some really great results, maybe a little weight loss or less inflammation or some symptom relief, right? Like due to specific supplements or changes in diet, like due to the work we were doing. So this is great.
Okay.
However, they were still like seemingly really stressed out, and they really wanted to talk about it. And I wasn't fully equipped, to kind of piece this all together. And so that's when I started doing a lot of research and I started looking into other modalities that could help support them. And in that, I learned about brain spotting, and I instantly connected with it. It was very intuitive for me. And so I dove right in, got my certification, and really jumped into that world and that community of brain spotting, but also like other brain body type modalities, right? And these somatic modalities. And so then I was really able to kind of piece together this role of the entire body and its health and how that plays in our mental health and our nervous system health and just overall wellness. And so that's how I kind of developed into this, functional mental health practitioner.
And so, can you describe for our listening audience the concept of brain spotting and what it is and what it isn't, and kind of the path that they're interested in maybe getting trained in that?
Yeah, of course. So brain spotting was developed by Dr. David Grand, and he was using EMDR with a client actually, and a client who, was struggling with she was an ice skater, and struggling with some work, some moves, that were important for her in competition, and she also had a lot of trauma, a lot of family trauma and family difficulties in her life, and so as he was doing this work with her, he noticed that when he stopped with his fingers at a particular point, there was this like wobble. There was a lot of feedback, essentially cues that he was receiving from her. And so he just kind of hung out there. And when he did that, all of this stuff that he had thought had previously been processed for her started to come out. And this whole idea of where we look affects how we feel, right? And where we look with our eyes and our field of vision helps to access, all of the emotions from the memories and things that we have had happen to us. Um, and so that's kind of, where this brain spotting started, and it's evolved a bit, since then, quite a bit. There's tons of different trainings. There's starts with phase 1, and David Grand just actually released a phase 5 training that you can take with him. There's intensive, there's master classes, there's lots of different specialty workshops. I've taken quite a few of those, so it works really well with like perinatal populations or with children. Um, all sorts of different things have come out of this really beautiful modality. But essentially, we are accessing in the limbic system where there is sort of trapped or stuck energies or memories or learned behaviors. And we're allowing the person to process through them in a safe space so that their brain doesn't shut down when these things
Okay.
feel activated, right? So like we feel activated around these things. And a lot of times what happens is our brain will shut down in the limbic system because it's like, nope, not safe. Don't go there. We don't want to deal with that. Put that in the junk drawer. We'll deal with it later, right? This is allowing us to access it, but not to where it's, there's still this tolerance, you're still capable of being able to kind of face it. The body can still face it. And so we can process through that, let that energy, let those things, let those thoughts, let the behaviors kind of go away, go where they need to go. So that, we're not like erasing memories or events or things that have happened to us, but what we're doing is we're allowing our responses to them be a bit more desirable. So where it's not so highly triggering for us, stressful for us, elevating for us, and leading to undesirable behaviors and thoughts and things like that.
And so you're also you focus on the body sort of as a medical provider and also a therapist, is that
Yeah, so I am able to, yeah, so as a functional mental health practitioner, I utilize nutrition, I utilize lifestyle and functional health labs as well on top of this like somatic work, right? So it's this whole idea that like the body is not in a vacuum and everything, affects each other. So I am also able to do functional labs with people. So that's anything from like blood work all the way to like stool testing, so we can really look at that microbiome and dive into what's happening in our gut and where we need to focus on that.
okay?
Um, HTMA, so hair tissue mineral analysis, I do, vaginal biome testing we can do. Um, what else? Blood work. Oh, food intolerances, things like that.
And then you also are a mental health practitioner as well.
Yeah. So everything, people that are coming to me because most of them are, they maybe they've tried medications and they don't like the way that they feel on them. But I don't diagnose. People come to me with diagnoses. So like I said, they might be on a medication that they don't like the way it feels, or they're ready to kind of, titrate off of it. Or, they're just dealing with an overall dysregulation of their nervous system. So just chronic stress, chronic anxiety, chronic trauma symptoms.
Mhm.
And they're just dealing with a lot of undesirable behaviors and thoughts usually. And so through looking at nutrition, looking at lifestyle, different lifestyle therapies and things that they're doing and can incorporate into their life. And then the somatic therapies and the functional health labs all kind of play a role in this altogether.
How fun. It seems very eclectic and kind of
Mhm.
every person
Very
has their own
integrative.
dynamic, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I do offer all of those things kind of as a standalone as well. Like if someone comes to me and they're like, you know what, that all sounds awesome, but it kind of can be for people a lot to take on, right? Then we can just do breath work. We can just do guided meditation. We can just hang out and do some yin yoga. I like to kind of pick and choose two of all of these different modalities that I have, what I think is going to be best for someone. And I like to also be able to offer them and let people choose what they think is going to be best for them at the time as well.
So when you think about the nervous system regulation, why is that so crucial for mental health? Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I sure can. We could do a whole entire podcast on this, but so our essentially like our autonomic nervous system is working 24/7, 365 constantly to keep us alive and in homeostasis, which means balance, right? And so we have three branches, and I know that you know this, and probably some of these listeners as well know this. But we have the sympathetic, the parasympathetic, and then we have the enteric. And I can go over, what those do here in a little bit. But each of those branches control organs in different ways. Most of the time, it's automatic, like breathing, pupils dilating, food digesting, stuff that's like going on within our systems that, we're maybe aware of, kind of, but like not really aware of. We don't choose to do it necessarily, right? But sometimes they react, these branches of the autonomic nervous system react to stimulants in our environment, right? So maybe we're being chased by a large animal in the desert, or maybe we heard a window break in our house in the middle of the night, or just being late to work for the third time that week, right? So our nervous system can react to things that are happening in the present. And it can also react to events that happened to us in the past. So now we're kind of hearing this word trigger a lot, right? So this word trigger kind of describes things that happen in our present that bring upon this similar nervous system response that happened in our past. Okay.
Mhm.
And it can even go as far as reacting to things that we're anticipating or things that may be occurring in our future as well. So, like butterflies over being on a podcast, right? Something doing a presentation. Um, and that's all due to this learned response that the nervous system has that starts in our amygdala and our brains. And I won't get like too deep divey into that, but it's pretty cool if you choose to, do so elsewhere. But our autonomic nervous system can become like stuck, right? Either in this like hyper or hypo arousal pattern. And a lot of times, that leads to these almost uncontrollable and undesirable behaviors or thought patterns. So I have specific tools and these somatic brain-based, exercises we spoke about and techniques that can help bring the nervous system back into the state of homeostasis. And actually, my signature program that I just spoke about a little bit, it's actually called Homeostasis Now. And so that's the program that I do with people where we're using nutrition and lifestyle in these somatic therapies.
It's so holistic and it's all together so inclusive and it's amazing. How were you influenced kind of to go down this path? Was it just sort of a passion, or did you kind of have somebody in your life maybe that led you that way?
Yeah, it was definitely a lot of research, a lot of passion, of course, but a lot of research and a lot of when we do this work, it's like being a detective. And I think it's so cool when you see these like puzzle pieces come together. And so from working with clients, early on from, working almost strictly just with like nutritional therapy with them, and then doing research and learning about how these things are connected. And I'm like, well, if I can help them support their vagus nerve, or if I can help support them in this, or if we can reduce inflammation here and see what happens, if we're going to get any sort of, reaction, positive or negative, a lot of it's trial and error, right? But, over here in their mental health or their stress reduction, like just kind of seeing how all these puzzle pieces came together.
Yeah.
Um, and then just realizing like this is nothing is in a vacuum of itself, And so having all these integrative approaches and little bit of effects was really just a matter of me diving into the research, trying it out with very awesome, willing,
Yeah.
participants. And seeing the way that this like river just kind of continues to flow and how every rock that drops in it affects it.
So you're mentioning the vagus nerve. Can you describe a little bit how the lifestyle, the somatic therapies, the nutrition, can you describe for our audience how that supports stress, anxiety, and trauma? So, for example, activation of the parasympathetic and the regulation of the vagus nerve. So, for our audience, the vagus nerve is the longest nerve in our body that touches basically every organ. And so, can you describe for our audience a little bit of basics about that and sort of how those other factors implement affect that?
Yeah, yeah. So like as you mentioned, right, the vagus nerve, which means like journeying in Latin, right? So it starts here, the base of our brain, and wanders down and touches all these organs and to our gut and everything. And it's a huge, crucial, nerve for our parasympathetic nervous system. And the parasympathetic nervous system is the branch that's like got that really kind of more chill vibe, right? Like it's like resting and it does our digestion and energy conservation and immune system and, mood control, all of these things that like typically are like pretty good. And we really want to, kind of stand
Right.
out for us, right? Kind of a place we want to like hang out. And so the vagus nerve is actually something that we have the ability to tone, sort of like a muscle in a way, right?
Okay.
Um, and what's really cool is it's not that hard to do, right? So like I love that sometimes when I'm talking with people and I'm like, yeah, I just like teach people how to breathe and sing out loud, in their car and like gargle after they brush their teeth, but all of those little things can be super helpful, to strengthening the vagus nerve and even just kind of stimulating it ourselves, like back here, on this bone behind our ear, can be a really good way to activate it. If we're feeling nervous and we want to like maybe calm down right there in the moment. Breathing can be a really helpful way, as well to activate the parasympathetic nervous system. It's really that release of breath that tells our nervous system that, okay, we're safe. Usually when we're sucking in a lot of air is because we're like maybe running from a lion or some danger, right? So typically when we're breathing through our mouth and breathing in a lot of air, extra oxygen, that's letting our nervous system know that maybe we're in a little bit of stress or a lot of bit of stress. But really releasing the breath and having a nice full breath lets our body and our nervous system know that we're in a place where we can actually sit and do that, right? So that's another way that can be really helpful to activate that. Um, but yeah, so there's tons of different things, and then also like nutrition too, like zinc can be really helpful, for toning our vagus nerve as well. So there's all of these little things, and you don't have to do all of them, right? But um there's a couple, quite a few different things that people can do to really help tone that vagus nerve, which in return is going to help that parasympathetic nervous response be really strong and come through for us.
I love the idea of toning it, right?
Mhm.
It's just
Yeah.
like this refining and kind of this muscular approach. I think that's really awesome.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
can you,
oh, go ahead.
how does that shift like from adults to children or about among different populations? And do you work across the lifespan?
Yeah, I do. And so it's a great question because like does it differ between the different populations I work with? I work with children yeah, as young as 3, really. I
Wow.
can do some pretty good work with. All the way up to, as old as you would like to, make it, but in perinatal populations as well. So I'm also certified as a PMHC, so that's certified in perinatal mental health as well. I'm a full spectrum doula. I work with loss and bereavement, but mostly in perinatal mental health. Perinatal mental health disorders, loss, grief, that sort of thing in that realm. But so even though it is a broad spectrum, my demographic, my population, it's like foundationally, it's kind of all the same, right? So as far as how the work goes, I've never had a single session or I've never had a single program with someone repeat itself. It's literally different
Yeah, right.
single time, right? So again,
Uh-huh.
foundationally, like we're working from the same place, but it's different every single time. I have different skill sets. I have different techniques that might lead themselves to being more helpful with a particular client circumstance, but like nothing's set in stone. Everyone's a bio individual, right? And what works for one doesn't always work for the other.
And does this only come in play for people virtually, or do you do it or I'm sorry, do you do it in person, or can you offer these services virtually as well?
I do both. I actually have two
Oh,
locations now in the Pocono. So I have my home office where I see folks in Pocono Pines, which is in Wayne County, and then also have an office in Carbon County in Lehighton. So it's nice to be able to offer that in-person um, collaboration approach. Some people really feel good with that and really feel safe with that. The place in Lehighton that I have in office is actually inside of a wellness center. So it's really cool because there's like tons of other practitioners, all the way from like talk therapists to, play therapy to there's a massage therapist and a hypnotist, and we do yoga. And so it's really collaborative there as well. So that's really cool, especially if you would like
yeah,
to participate in those other things.
right.
But everything that I do works great virtually as well. So that's really awesome. So if you are, not local to me, or if maybe you're just more comfortable, being in your own setting, being in your own home or whatever setting you choose, hopefully one that's a little private, that's all I ask, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, like wherever it works for you, it's going to work for me. Um, and that's really great. It's really fantastic that it can, be accessible to people in that way.
Can you describe how would you work with a 3-year-old? I'm just curious about what kind of
Mhm.
things you could do. When I had I have twins, and when I
Mhm.
had my twins, so they were a C-section, and
Yep.
so when they were born, one of my sons had sort of an offset cranium, and they said, "Oh, you need to go to a chiropractor." I thought, "Oh, chiropractor." And so he just did this cool little, I don't even know, he kind of just put something in the cranium and he's like, "Yep," and his head grew
Yeah.
normal. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh my
Yeah.
God, you're so amazing." I had never heard such a thing, on
Yeah.
like an infant. And it was so amazing. So can you kind of share about your experience there and
Yeah.
can help our littles because that's really important.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's a lot of play, right? So it's this idea of like play and excuse me, just kind of following the lead of the little one, right? So that's a big thing in across all populations, right? Like this brain spotting, principle of following in the tail of the comet, the client being the comet, right? And so, it's really just meeting your, toddler or child or whoever where they're at. But so with the toddler, usually there's like a lot of play going on. And I have many different techniques I use, but one I really like, and again, can use this with all ages, but it's I learned it for the use with children. It's called stargazing. It's a brain spotting technique. But essentially you just kind of chat, hang out with the child and see what's like maybe bothering them. And children aren't always going to be able to pinpoint what's bothering them, like, but you can still tell when they're in stress or when they are bothered. But they may say, "Oh, it's because my brother poked me," but really there might be something deeper rooted in there, right? Like maybe they're getting a really big reaction from being poked, right? And so we can just talk more so about what is this reaction. It doesn't necessarily have to be why, right? Because they don't know and we don't know, right? Maybe they don't know, we don't know. But we're just on the fact that there is this reaction or there is a big emotion, or maybe they're really sad about something. Okay. So you're noticing your child is just really, really sad all the time. And so we just acknowledge the sadness, okay? And then we're just going to kind of ask them, like, is there anywhere in their body? And like maybe use a doll, or maybe you have like a figure they can draw, like anywhere in your body that you're kind of noticing where this sadness feels for you. Like, where's the sadness living for you? Could be a technique that you would use. Or you can, again, use like stuffed animals, like illustrate to me within these animals, or which one of these stuffed animals. I have some that are like happy, some that are sad, some that are kind of angry, these different emotions, right? Which one of these like do you want to hang out with? Which one of these do you want to have a conversation with?
Okay.
Where in their body do they feel, the sadness or whatever the emotion is that they're going through? So, again, it just kind of varies depending on, how the kid is. But you kind of want to like locate that, whether it's in a doll or outside of them or within themselves. And then you can have them place the doll, or in stargazing, for example, we'll have like little stars. And you can have them place these little stars or whatever it is you're working within the location that they are feeling the most connected to. So you give them the choice, right? So it's like, here's in the case of a star, we have a star, and I'm going to draw on the star a really sad face because I'm feeling really sad, like I'm the
Right.
3-year-old. And so I would say, like, okay, now where do you think this sad star wants to live? Where does he want to live? You have this whole wall you can put him on. Where does he want to live? And then, put a little tape on it, and then the sad star goes where the sad star wants to live. And then the sad star in the 3-year-old can have a conversation, right? Like, what does that sad star want to say to you? You know, does that sad star feel the sadness anywhere in its body, or do you feel it anywhere in your body? Um, so again, like it's a lot of this like playing and this idea that maybe it's not always within the child, but also they can put that onto something else because it can sometimes be a little easier to tackle if
Yeah.
they're taking care of another star or toy or stuffed animal or whatever it may be.
So when would a parent seek you out? So what are some of the things that you're trying to help these kiddos with?
Oh, yeah. I mean, so many different things. Yeah, like just like bedwetting, right? Just any sort of undesirable behavior. Incredible food pickiness, right? Like just really not wanting to be adventurous at all with food is something we can work with. Incredible sadness, emotional outbursts. And, at that age, it can be hard because, right? Like these are things that are happening. Like,
Right.
like naturally, normally for a child at that age, right? They're discovering their bodies, and they're discovering their emotions, and they're discovering the foods that they like and their own personalities. A lot of big things are kind of happening at that moment, right? So it's really helping parents navigate that within their child, and then also having, understanding, like, is this something that I should be worried about? Like, is this a chronic extreme sadness that might be a problem? Is something that we can like help them process because they've gone through something that's creating this? Or is it something that is like a normal part of development?
So let's talk and transition about your concept of food as medicine and the role that that plays sort of in mental health and wellness. Can you kind of describe that for us and that interaction and how that is?
Yeah, so nutrition, it affects all the functions in our body, right? So we're talking our gut health, blood sugar regulation, immune system, inflammation. You wouldn't I don't think any of us would, I like to use car analogies sometimes, but like you wouldn't expect your car to get you from New York City to LA with one tank of gas, right?
Right,
And you wouldn't stop along the way after you ran out of that tank of gas and like fill it up with soda and expect it to like continue to work, right? So it's like it's really important for just as a foundational perspective, like
uh-huh,
we're looking at the food in that it is a way to fuel our body. And so it's important that we're giving our machine, our body, the fuel that it is designed or evolved to, consume and utilize. So just that in itself, right, is super important. But then also like how it affects all these aspects of our body, like our blood sugar regulation, right? So like if we are like not fueling ourselves and or properly, and we have this like really wonky like blood sugar that's being dysregulated all the time, and then we don't have this glucose to like have energy and run off of, and the next thing you know our body is like, oh, we're out of our storage of our glucose, so now we're going to produce cortisol in order to continue to function on. Well, like we know cortisol is a stress, right? Like stress hormone. So
right,
so
right,
now our body is running off of stress, like literally, right? And so making sure that we are properly fueling ourselves and fueling ourselves enough. That's just one example of how it can affect like our, just blood sugar, and then how blood sugar therefore can affect our moods and our mental health. Um,
transition
and
now to were you going to say something?
no, go right ahead. Yeah, go right
The
ahead. Because
body.
I will sit here and keep talking and talking and talking about all of these things. So you have to cut me off. Go
I'm
right ahead.
curious about sort of the idea of overall health, and this idea of self-care, because people talk a lot about take care of yourself, and it's like, I'm going to retreat in the Caribbean. It's like, no, you
Mm,
can just eat, something healthy or drink some water or do these ideas of self-care. So can you talk about sort of
mhm,
how the body and the movement and meditation now we've had the intake and then the behavioral now with the movement. Can you talk a little bit about um, how that body movement and fluidity help people support their nervous system and then how you implement those ideas into your practice.
Yeah, yeah. And I kind of want to go back a little bit with what
Yeah.
you said, this idea of self-care, right?
Mhm.
And how like, it doesn't have to be this like major vacation,
Mhm.
just little lifestyle things that you do for yourself is self-care, right? So like if you want to, play basketball, like, but you don't, well, you love to play basketball, but like maybe you don't find the time to play basketball anymore. Finding the time to play basketball, if it makes you happy, is a form of self-care, right? Like, if it makes you feel good, finding time to write in your journal, even if it's 5 minutes a day, if that's what helps you, makes you feel good, is a form of self-care. So, self-care can be all of these little things that really
Right.
just make you feel good about yourself and help you kind of release any sort of stress or pent up energy, right? So that's really important that like it doesn't have to be hard to do.
Right.
And so as far as like creating these lifestyle moments for yourself, I mean, it's literally a part of my program, homeostasis now, where I'll sit down and say, okay, like, what is it that you enjoy doing? And you're like, oh, okay. Well, I really like creative writing, but I haven't done that in so long. And I'm like, okay, we'll make a note of that, and we're going to incorporate time for you. That's part of your protocol, creative writing, playing basketball, boxing. I've had someone who was like, I really love boxing and I want to really get into it. I'm like, cool, it's in your protocol. That's in the treatment plan, right? Um, And so finding prioritizing those things, and allowing yourself to really be yourself and remember who you are and the things that you enjoy can have such a huge impact on our mental health
Oh,
and
yeah, for sure.
right.
Yeah.
And like
Well,
why we're here doing what we're doing.
and everyone, like you said, is so different there. Can you talk? And I'm not gonna say this word correctly, so maybe you can say it for the audience, but the type of therapists that the nature and environment
Yeah.
are that contribute to healing and wellness, because I think, I'm in Idaho, and so we have a lot of sort of um, opportunities for the outdoors. And I just went down to southern Utah this
Mhm.
last weekend for my daughter's cheer conference, and it was just such a different environment. It's a kind of the same, where it's like a lot of dirt and pine trees, but then we moved into like this red beautiful rock area with like you're living in the mountains in St. George, and it's just a really cool feeling for me. And so
Yeah.
it's a little still dry, but I think for myself I just really felt that in that experience. Can you talk about that and then share the word?
Yes, yes, I can. And thank you for describing that. It was like warming me up. I said it's still very cold up here where I'm at. And so hearing you talk about these like red rocks and everything, I was like, oh, I bet it was warm. I
Yeah,
don't know.
it was.
It felt really nice. I could feel it. So thank you for describing it. But yeah, so the word that I believe you are referring to is
Yeah.
silvotherapy.
Okay. Yeah.
And so that is so Silvo, Sylvia, Silas, these are all names that mean of the woods, of the forest, right? They're
Love
Latin.
that.
And so that's at silvotherapy where we get that word from. But it's also known as forest bathing, right? Shinin Yoko. Also, would be like the Japanese form of the therapy. But yeah, essentially that is th this idea of being out in nature, being out one with nature and slowing down in nature is a really big part of it. Like being mindful in nature, okay, is a really big part of this as well. So, it can help in many, many different ways, right? Breathing in air, you're breathing in different, you traveled to somewhere new, so you were breathing in different helpful bacteria, you know. Than what you're used to. And that is like adding to your little inner ecosystem there, right? So
Love
having the
that. That's
yeah,
amazing.
right?
So
Like
cool.
having in the dirt and the soils, right? The minerals in the dirt and the soils. So, I often tell people who are into gardening, I'm like, don't wear gardening gloves. Like, unless you're, dealing with like thorns and, dangerous type of stuff. But if you're just gardening, digging in the dirt, let your fingernails get dirty. Let that absorb into your skin. Let those different bacterias, those different minerals, all of that really, really great for you. The grounding aspect, right? Like this literal aspect of Mother Nature taking our negative spin energy from us, regenerating it, and then being able to disperse it back out to us and to other living things, right? And if you all come to the Healers Summit in May, I will be speaking more and more detail about like the scientific health benefits of nature and the trees. And there's this compound that they release called phytoncides, and that aids in so many ways regarding our health and stress reduction, immune support, and more. So there's like a scientific aspect as well to this. It's not just like going out and hugging trees, which is also an aspect of it as well.
I think that's so amazing. I'm so encouraged to hear your presentation at our summit. I think it's such a needed area right now with all of the different kinds of stressors that we're having, and the uncertainty, and getting out and just grounding, walking with your shoes off, or, being able to kind of understand what that's doing for you. Like, I love how you described like the bacteria on the hands. And there's a reason why children need to play in dirt.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you think of this idea and this is not across the board, right? But because it's just nothing is. But for a lot of people, this idea of going home can evoke, happiness and relaxation, right? Well, if you think about it, like Mother Earth is our home. Like this is where we came from. This is where you know, our ancestors, survived this and how we have come about as our society is all because of the earth. It all because of nature. So it's this idea of like going back home to a earth that's always going to take care of us, as long as we take care of it. But it's always going to provide for us and always going to be able to take care of us. And we can always grow food from the earth and we can always have shelter, from the earth and Mother Nature and things like that. So just the idea of like, you said, just like slowing down and being grateful for where we came from and what it has provided for us for so many years. And just how we can find like peace and solace in that.
Yeah, my second grader, she she's learning about recycling and reusing, and she's teaching my sons who are 5 about the earth. And somehow she heard that if you don't pick up trash, there'll be a volcano on Earth.
Okay.
So we're still trying. I mean, she's getting the concept though, and so we're teaching
Yeah.
her about taking care of the environment and making sure, that it's all supported and that you're appreciating it and that gratitude there is just so important. I'm curious a little bit about you as a person. What do you do personally? So you have all these like eclectic, very fun things that you're serving people with. How do you sort of turn that back to yourself and help you approach your own wellness and self-care?
Yeah, and it goes hand in hand. It's definitely like being outside in nature has been
Okay.
a huge part of my own healing journey, my family's healing journey, just our mental health in general, right? Being able to have access to land that we can just slow down in and do work on, but it always feels good, like having this good work. I always say we own about 50 acres in the county over. So it's about 20 minutes or so away from us. And, we raise pigs there and we have birds. And so we get our eggs from there and we'll get our meat from there. And we have our fun there, just dirt bikes and four-wheelers and hiking and camping and sleeping outside and all of those things. I do silvotherapy sessions there as well. So it's beneficial in that way, also. But just having that place for us to slow down and like remind ourselves that we don't get to control everything.
Yeah.
That, when we go there, and there was a storm, there's probably going to be some trees down and they're probably going to be in our way, right?
Mhm.
And so maybe what we thought we were going to do that day, we have other things we have to take care of first in order to even get to where we want to go to do that thing, right? So we're going to be like cutting down trees and moving wood and things like that. And so incorporating that, that movement obviously is incorporated with that as well. But this idea that like we don't control everything and we're going to have to solve problems and put in the work to take care of that land that is also taking care of us and finding ways to take care of us, and this symbiotic relationship is beautiful. So outside of going there and doing that, we camping and hiking and kayaking, anything in the water. I just got back from a road trip vacation with my partner. Him and I went down to Tennessee, and we actually saw a concert in a cave. So that was even our concert
Wow.
incorporated like Mother Nature.
Yeah,
Now that
that's
I'm thinking about
cool.
it, right? It was very cool. Highly recommend out in Pelham, Tennessee, and that's called the Caverns. But so we did that, but we went whitewater rafting, which is something that we try and fit in at least once a year at some river somewhere. So, all of those things.
Come out to Idaho.
Yeah, yeah, we'll
There's
have
a
to do
lot of
that.
really good rafting out here, and that's one of the main things a lot of people look forward to. So yeah, come out here if love rock.
Love it. I know. When you were describing that, I really did. I like felt the warmth. I was like, all right, I'll see you there.
Can you share a little bit about kind of how do you kind of help others achieve their vision of wellness? And so I think it can be sometimes very daunting as we're going through this process. Like, I'll just use my example. If I was coming to you and I was like hearing everything you do, I'm like, where do I start? How do you help them
Mhm.
kind of overcome that and kind of help them work in steps? And, does it take 6 months? Like how long is a typical involvement kind of, or do you pace it or how does that, I know there's a lot of questions in there, but how does that look for them?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I am a big fan of baby steps. Okay. So yeah, like there's a lot of things that we've talked about today, right? A lot of different modalities and different things. And it's again, 100% what feels right for you, what feels attainable, right? Like I am when I'm working with someone, I am not like dictating to them, like, okay, these are what your intake form says, and here's my protocol for that, right? We're a team. Like, I'm here to support you. I have all these ideas. I have this like Mary Poppins bag,
Yeah,
of
yeah,
different sort of like trainings and skills and tools and experiences that I have that, can probably help support you, right? But I want to be able to present them to you, and then you need to make that choice. Okay. Like that doesn't, you know what? I could be like, "Look, I love journaling. I think it's great. But if you're not into it and you're not going to do it, then if it's going to add more stress to your life, then like let's not journal,
yeah,
right? Let's find something that is going to be, make you feel good. It's going to be attainable for you because the most important thing with this is, seeing the results. There's nothing worse than like putting in the work and the effort and the work and the effort and you don't get a paycheck, right? Like you
yeah,
don't see the results. So doing these baby steps of things that feel good and make sense to you, are where you're going to actually start to see the results. And then you just keep kind of hacking away at it. And the next thing you know, you'll look back, like, figuratively, you look back and you're like, oh my gosh, I did it. I'm where I'm at. I'm where I want to be.
yeah.
And I can't believe, and maybe it took 6 months. Maybe it took a year, depending the time varies, depending on what it is and on the individual person. But, having that consistency, having it be something that makes sense to you and something that you enjoy doing, I think is huge. Um, and having people, a support system that can be
Yeah.
there with you along the way and that
Yes.
understand that,
Uh-huh. Oh,
and
you're supposed to
flow.
be eating this thing today. What's going on? Oh, having people in
Yeah.
your life that are, or even my children, like seeing me make a change, they want to too and be involved.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Surrounding yourself with, the people that are doing the things that you want to be doing, Yeah.
So, going to the summit here, what can attendees expect from your session, kind of at the summit, and how do you hope to kind of impact their healing journeys as you think about your presentation?
Yeah. So, essentially during the summit, I'll be speaking of the effects of, Mother Nature and ecotherapy and silvotherapy and this regenerative properties of Mother Earth and how it has this impact on our mental health and our own regenerative powers within ourselves. So I'm going to touch a little bit on the science behind it, a bit of the history behind it. But if you come to the summit and hear me talk, then you'll actually leave with tools and exercises that you can use for yourself or for clients. And that can happen inside and outside of the office, right? So you think solo therapy, it's all going to be outside. I'm only also going to talk about ways that we can incorporate that inside our homes and our office when it's
That's
not
it.
possible to get outside,
Yeah,
So
you
that's,
can see my plants behind me
yeah.
sometimes just come in
Yep.
like, oh, I love
Uh-huh.
coming in and watering. How are you today? It's just like that. Just gives me,
Yes, and like touching them.
yeah,
I know sometimes I like I forget how many plants I have in my house, and then I'll actually sit down and count them and be like, okay, is that like cool or is that embarrassing? Like I
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah, yeah. I love just, the feeling, the felt sense I have.
hmm
So it makes me feel so excited. So when you think about, for those in the mental health field, what advice or tips would you give for kind of, actually, I'll just say this, like for a therapist, you're in your office all day, what advice would you give for things they can do to sort of help them create a healing space in their office?
hmm
And then also, how do they integrate those holistic practices into their work?
Yeah, absolutely. So get plants, have plants, A lot of time these like big box stores, they'll even have clearance plants, and so plants can be very expensive, but there is ways to access them that, it is not so expensive. Ask friends, can I have some clippings? Can I have some cuttings? That sort of thing. They will grow, and that's very cool to see too, also the fruits of your labor, right? So, yeah, definitely incorporate plants, even pictures, right? Your screensaver, like, or your background on all of these screens that, sometimes we have like three or more of them in front of us, depending on our work, but having even the backgrounds of nature scenes. In my office at all times, some people might drive crazy, I don't know, but at all times I have birds chirping. So when you walk into my office, it has this really beautiful, my one in Carbon County has this beautiful natural light, and you walk in and there's always birds just faintly kind of chirping in the distance, and it's
Wow.
everyone's like, oh, okay, right? It just kind of invokes that calming. Like when birds are chirping and they're happy, there's not danger, right? So our nervous system is in tune with that. Oh, the birds are happy. It must be a safe space, right?
Wow, I
So
never thought of that before.
yeah, something like that. Now, I do want to note you do want to be mindful if you are a clinician and you work with people and they come into office that you are aware. So in my intake, it literally says, do you have an aversion to birds or water? Because if that person does, then you probably like maybe they have a fear of birds or something happened and or water or something happened. You don't want them to walk into that environment for them specifically. It's not going to be that calming, right?
Right.
So do just be mindful of that. And I do have that
Okay.
question in my intake, right? Like just little things like that are important because you don't want them to walk in and instantly, be the opposite of what you're trying to do for them, right? But yeah, so having the birds chirping, calming music, nature sounds, that sort of thing. Having when if you have a window in your office, don't have a blind unless you absolutely need it. If you need the privacy, that's one thing. But being able to let the light in can also be really helpful for invoking that like nature and peaceful, bringing that nature into the inside essentially.
So what would be a key takeaway for our listeners after hearing your thoughts today and your insights?
Yeah. So, I guess I just want to say here, like life is hard. Okay. So whether you're living in a hunting and gathering society, maybe you're on a farm in a grassland raising sheep, I don't know, or maybe you're in a high rise in the city, right? There's always going to be obstacles and there's always going to be stressors. And I remember there was a workshop I attended with Dr. Catherine Pittman, and I don't know if you're familiar with her, but she like knows everything about the amygdala, right? Like
Wow. Okay.
and she's great. She's a great presenter too. So look her up. But she said that we have to remember that we come from a stressed ancestry, right? Like without them being in a state of stress or defense response, like a lot, almost all the time, they wouldn't have survived and we wouldn't be here.
Right.
So stress is natural in our lives. It's necessary in our lives. We don't want to necessarily like get rid of it altogether. I don't know if you've ever had clients come in and they're like, I'm so stressed out, I just want to stop. I just want to get rid of the stress. I'm like,
Mhm.
well,
Well, yeah.
maybe, but maybe not, right? Um, but there are effective in like relatively simple ways that we can support each other and that we can support ourselves to help our reactions, to help our thoughts, to help our behaviors, and like to be more in line with our goals and what our desires are, right? So, like, don't feel like there's something wrong with you if you're having a hard time with stress, if you're having a hard time with anxiety, if you're feeling really depressed, or you have all these trauma symptoms coming up. There are definitely ways to re-regulate and support yourself back into this state of balance. It's okay. And we just need to stop treating ourselves and we need to stop treating each other as if we don't matter. I think that's like my big takeaway. Like just have grace with yourself.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with you. People do want to help. You're not alone. There are people that want to support you, and there are ways that we can, help to support you to get back to a place where you want to be.
So tell our listening audience where they can find you and your website and the services you offer and all the details.
Yeah. So the best place to find me, honestly, I'm not huge on social media. You can probably find it out there, but I can't promise that it's current. But the best place to find me and all my information is my website, and that is www.pinelaurelwellness.com. So Pine, Pine, Laurel, Laurel, wellness.com. And on there, it has all of my services. You can book appointments with me. All my phone numbers on there, my email. I do offer free like 20-minute discovery calls that we can connect and kind of, discuss any ways that I can help support you more. You can ask questions and all of that. So yeah, that would be the best way to find out more.
We're excited to have you come to our summit, and we're excited to hear you present. I'm excited to hear your presentation. So
Thank you. Yes.
that will be May 8th and 9th. You can register at rewired360.com for our healing summit. And I am just so thrilled to have you here today. You are literally a breath of fresh air.
I love that.
And you can find me, Kathy Couch, at rewired360.com, and we will see you next time.
Awesome. Thank you all. Bye.
Bye.